So, all right, this is the second week 2 of English every week. I'm going I'm going on vacation in about 4 weeks or so. So I need to really start pumping these out. At least 1.5 every week. But yeah, it has been 2 days for me since the last episode. So this is quite rushed. Especially with all the feedback that I've been getting on these episodes. So I just want to make some corrections to the previous episode. First of all, the previous episode, for the phonology section, I mentioned that English distinguishes between fortis and lenis consonants. I was under the impression that these only apply to stops. That is not true. Most sibilants have sibilants and obstruents have fortis and lenis. Those that traditionally would be described as voiceless pairs have fortis and lenis pairs in English. For example, pit versus P, and I'll write them all down here. P, B, T, D, K, G, C, H, J, F, V, T, H, and T, H, I'll explain later. S, Z, S, H, Z, H. Right? Those are the fortis lenis pairs in English, fully. Obviously left is fortis, right is lenis. But these are actually two different sounds. I think I'll get into them in the TH episode, but it really does not matter at all. These are like the two sounds that, like, probably the distinction between them, you do not have to worry about them at all. I'd wager 99% of native speakers do not know those are two different sounds. But I digress. And yes, I want to also correct a point I made. Aspiration does also occur in stressed syllables, such as in the word potato, where the syllable is a primary stress. The te is also aspirated. So let's start consonant of the week. Consonant of the week with T. T. So T is a fortis stop. Similar to P. It is alveolar, which means it is pronounced on the alveolar ridge of the mouth. You don't really need to know where that is. Just know that that is considerably further back in the mouth than P. And it is similar to P in many ways. It is a fortis stop, so it will share a lot of just general stop things like no audible release. And mass release. And aspiration. I won't go into these in too much detail. You can go watch the phonology segment of week 1 if you want to know what these three are. And fortis stop, I guess. If you want to know what these are, you can go watch week 1. But that is essentially the basics of T. But T also has some very unique and interesting behaviors that are very, very much distinct from P. First up is yod coalescence. You do not have to remember this at all. Literally no one will understand what you mean when you talk about this. But basically, it is when Y and D, or T, come together in a word, they turn into affricates. So, for example, in British and Australian accents, they turn into affricates. For example, in the word T-U-B-E, tube. This is pronounced for Australian, something more like this. I actually don't know the exact vowels of these two, but I'll have to bear with the pseudoscientific nature of this. I didn't look too deep into this, but this is palatalized. So there is actually an invisible Y sound in here for British and Australian English speakers. And so what happens when there's a T and a Y is that they turn this into a CH sound. So instead of saying tube, they would say tube. Tube. It's quite funny. And it's like the stereotypical British accent, right? I don't suppose you know about that, but regardless, it is something they do. And I think this combination occurs, forgive me if I'm wrong, but in the second set of tense U. You'll notice this U is tense. So it produced that Y sound. I do vaguely recall something like that happening, but you'll have to fact check for yourself. Next up, T-globalization. Right. First up, what is a glottal? Right? So your mouth consists of many, many moving parts. I don't think that needs to be said. Your mouth and your throat are very, very, very highly complex organs. So they consist of many parts. But the part that glottal is referring to is actually in your throat. I forgive my drawing skills. They are not right. But this looks like a Minecraft villager. But your glottis is right here. And is actually the part that separates your esophagus from your trachea. Your trachea? Trachea, yeah. It is part of your larynx, and it is basically like a small, see there's one tube that goes down like this. There's another tube that goes down like this. And this is the glottis. And what the glottis does is it blocks the food tube. It separates the food tube from the air tube. Right? Well, obviously food needs to be able to get in. So, what can your glottis do? Well, your glottis can open. Your glottis can open. It's like a ring, right? Your glottis can be closed or open, so air can flow through. And this is a glottal stop. I might have switched this around, actually. I definitely switched this around. This is food. This is air. It's so food doesn't get into our air tubes, you know? And so a glottal stop is this. This is a stop, because if you remember, stop is a closing up of something and then a release, and this is just not. This is the vowel state, I guess you would say. But yeah, that is what a glottal stop is. Now, a glottalization is what happens in words such as football, where this T gets turned into a glottal stop, which is represented sort of like a question mark with no dot. Football, the T in football gets either turned into a glottal stop, or the release is turned into a glottal stop. In which case, no audible release can be heard because the glottis is closed. The second one the one I just mentioned, is called pre-glottalization. Which is indicated like this. And the square brackets. And this one is full glottalization. I forgot the name for it. It's a complete glottalization. It just turns right. Some people say this. Some people say this. But most do one of these. And lastly, we have affricates, flaps. But first, I just want to mention that these two, this is not pronounced t. Okay, this is not th. No, please do not say this. I get physically hurt whenever anyone says this. Do not say it like t, because this is a separate sound. Usually, like as in thick, right? And this, well, it can be two sounds actually, but this is the most common one, as in thick. And this one is your good old T. As in, so do not say tick, do not say tree, do not say tree, like as in T-R-E-E either. Right? Do not say trough. It's, sorry. That's a different one. That's the African. My bad. Do not say tick. Do not say tree, as in the number. They are separate sounds, okay? And just because something affects T does not mean it affects TH. In fact, it means it does not affect TH. Anyways, flaps. So, intervocalically, T turns into a flap, which is sort of like an R sound. It's like a common R sound in many languages, such as Japanese. This is the Japanese R. In words such as button, which is pronounced button in like normal speech, not talking emphatically like I am right now. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. This happens word vocabulary. Yeah, word at the end of words too, and this actually overrides this. But it's basically still the same, because this has no release, has no audible release, and this prevents audible release. So the end result is basically the same. However, this is present at the end of words, such as foot. Anyway, back to flaps. Button. T turns into a flat when it's intervocalic, such as in the word button or bottle. But don't you feel something's a little bit weird about the word bottle? How many many vowels do you think are in the word ball? Because I'll give you a hint. It's less than 2. This is the only vowel in ball. Why? This is reduced. And what that means is, this is silent E. This is silent E, sorry. What that means is this acts as a second vowel. So this is still a flat, despite this being an L, because the L is a vowel. Not really. But we call it a syllabic consonant because it acts the same way that a vowel would in a syllable. There are 3 syllabic consonants in English, and they are marked with a little thing on the bottom. L, N, and N. Those are the 3 vowels that can act as consonants in English. Oh, sorry, consonants that can act as vowels in English. Fun fact, N actually is a vowel in the word N. But I digress. It's just a cool thing. But I digress. Lastly, affricates. So I got a little bit confused earlier because the consonant comes with TR in words such as tram. Sorry, tram. I feel foreign just saying that. But anyways, in words such as tram are affricates. For example, tram, you can hear my affricate. You can hear, I'm not saying tram. I'm not saying tram. I'm not saying tram. I'm not saying tram. I'm saying tram. Right? Again, affricate means these are pronounced simultaneously. This also happens in words like eighth, although it may be very minor. Eighth. Why? Because this should actually be pronounced A, J, let's keep it simple. E, I, G, H, T, as in the word 8. And then a TH. It's just these get merged into one because of spelling rules. But these also get merged into one phonetically because nobody is saying somebody came in eighth. That's a pain. So instead, what we say is eighth. Right? We merge the TH and the T together. Honestly, that would have been way better segue into this. Segue, which is spelled S-E-G-U-E. Because it's a French word English people horribly butcher. But anyways. This means like transition. There's one more affricate, which is TS in words such as beats. This curly thing denotes simultaneous pronunciation, by the way. But not always, because at the start of words, like tsunami, there is no. It's not tsunami. It's one T. The T is silent. Wow, I should get into silent letters, but Yeah, we have so many loans, and a lot of them are silent. I might do spelling once I'm done with all the consonants. There are less vowels than consonants, right? Yeah. I think there are less vowels than consonants. So I'll do spelling after vowels. Anyways, it's time for vowel verb. Moving quite a bit faster this time because these are things I know. Unlike last time, I had to learn all this in like an hour and then present because I was quite rushed. Today's vowel of the week is. Oh, it's been 20 minutes. Today's vowel of the week is schwa. I can't draw it. Close enough. Imagine an upside down. Right, that's schwa. That looks horrible. But I'm not used to drawing it. Right? Schwa is quite special because it doesn't have a set spelling. Doesn't have a set spelling. And it is never stressed. You might be saying, what is stress? You've probably been hearing this word quite a lot if you're learning English. Because stress is extremely important in English. It's probably second only to vowels in the place it has in affecting English spelling and pronunciation. And it is second only to vowels in how fucking confusing it is as well. So we'll be taking a not so brief look at stress. Stress. I'd recommend you take notes. English has what is known as phonemic stress. That means the meaning of a word is sometimes defined solely by stress, such as in the two words, in these two words. They're spelled the same, yeah, that's the point. This is a noun and this is a verb. This is increase, as in the company has seen an increase in profits last year, and increase, as in we have helped the company increase its profits last year. This is actually the most common method, and by far the most common method of phonemic stress is moving the stress forward. This is one syllable, I think. Is moving the primary stress forward to the first syllable. When you turn it from a noun, when you turn it from a verb to a noun. This process of verb to nouning is called nominalization, by the way. I'll write that down. Nominalization. Nominal as in of nouns, not like nominal as in for the sake of explanation, or something similar to typically. But yeah. There are 3 levels of stress in English. Primary, which is number 1. Secondary, which is 2. And tertiary. You might not have come across this word before. This means third. Right? Let's take an example word like organization. Like as in the noun. Well, it is a noun. It has a nominal suffix. But in the word organization, primary stress is on the last syllable. The secondary stress is on the first syllable. The tertiary stress is on this syllable, is on the third syllable. Sorry. Tertiary, this primary stress is on the fourth syllable. And these two syllables are not stressed. How can you tell? You don't. You look up a dictionary and see what it has marked for you, because stress is very, like, the difference between primary and no stress, like, sure, maybe you can tell, but the difference between primary, secondary, and tertiary stress is so small that you basically need some sort of speech analyzer to find out what it is. Like, for example, prop, which is a speech analyzer, which I've been told kind of sucks. Yeah, there can only be one primary stress in the word. That's the most stressed syllable. There generally can only be one secondary stress in a word, and it is it's another stressed syllable that's not as stressed as the primary. And there is also tertiary stress, which is not really stress, but more so non-reduction, which holds up in some models. Now, some people like to include it, some people like to say, break the rule I like to have, that reduced vowels are always no stress. There is a whole academic and scholarly debate about that, but I will just assume tertiary is no stress, because this gives me a nice rule to work with, which is unstressed syllables always have reduced vowels. And the converse. Right? What does this mean? In typical, I should say, in typical English, conventional English speech, such as General American, Australian English, British English, and I think South African English, I'm not quite sure. In typical speech, reduced vowels are never stressed. And unstressed syllables always have reduced vowels. Well, what does it mean if schwa is never stressed? If schwa is never stressed, and unstressed syllables always have reduced vowels, and that means schwa is a reduced vowel. Only. What does it mean, being a reduced vowel? Well, it means you have no set spelling. It means the reduced vowel is just whatever vowel it used. By the way, a reduction, I realize I never actually properly explained this, but a reduction of vowel quality is when something, when some normal vowel, this is normally pronounced like get, this should normally be pronounced like ga, right? But obviously you don't say organization. You say orga. Go. That's what we mean by reduced. Which is when there's no stress, the normal vowel gets masked by one of these vowels. And this is part of why English spelling is so difficult. And people say, oh, it's never consistent. But no, it really is quite consistent. If you add the model of lax, tense, heavy, and tense R vowels, along with these rules, English spelling should become far more consistent. Like 99% of words should be pronounced how you expect them to, and 99% of words should be spelled how you expect them to. Oh, it's like, obviously there are rules, right? This isn't Tibetan. We don't memorize every single word because the spelling is like BKJ or something, and the word is pronounced rook. Right? Obviously, we don't do that. We don't have that much free time on our hands. But yeah. Anyways, back to schwa. Schwa is very commonly rhoticized, which means in words such as... Do I actually have examples? Yeah, I do. Words such as nurse or matter. You'll notice nurse. Matter. No. I don't have the major. But in words of like in a word like matter, this is the primary stress. It's very clear, right? This is the primary stress, and so this is reduced. So this turns into a rhoticized form of schwa, which is represented as an upside down E with like a thing attached to it. Right? And not to get too technical, but this is technically a separate vowel. But I find it really cool because there are two dimensions of vowel space in English. Right? There are two dimensions, which is frontness, and there are three dimensions actually. There's frontness, highness, I suppose conventionally height, and there's also roundness, which is binary. And then you have this guy. Oh, by the way, these are the two main paradigms because they correspond to two different formants. I actually don't know which one's F1 and F2, but they correspond to two different formats. You don't need to know any of this, but I think it's just pretty cool. They correspond to two different formats, and roundedness is just how round your mouth is. It affects airflow, but this guy is low on formant 3. So it's literally on a completely separate dimension than every other vowel, including base schwa, which I think is really, really cool. But yeah, it can be spelled literally any way you want, with A, E, I, O, U, all equally as common because stress does not discriminate. Yeah, and the syllabic consonants I mentioned earlier are also a result of reduction. Right, in words such as bottle, this is the primary stress, and this is on stress. Right, which means the E disappears and the L becomes syllabic. Moving on, we are pretty good on time. Let's not take... Okay, so the consonant took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take, and the vowel, which I thought was going to be the hard part for today, did not need to take nearly as long as it's going to take. We're moving on to a special 2-week unit here in English every week, and that is on vocabulary. And that is on commonly confused words. Because these words are so commonly confused, I don't want to make a unit which is like, oh, these are the commonly confused words. Here are 2 of them. Here's why it's commonly confused, because that's just going to lead to more confusion because you'll mix them up further because I am relating those 2 words together. So instead, this week we're going to talk about half of the words, and the next week we're going to be talking about the other half. And these words are very similar. So a lot of them I've even seen native speakers mess up. Including just today, I saw someone mess up the second one of these. So let's go. The first word is affect. Right? Affect is a verb that is like sort of the, I guess, what the fuck is the definition of affect? Yeah, make a difference. To make a difference, right? Like, I affected his ability to concentrate by playing very loud music right next to him, right? That is the definition of affect. The next word is counselor, spelled with an S. It is double L in UK spelling, because this is monstrous. But yeah, a counselor is someone who provides counsel, which is like advice, basically. It's advice. Complementary. I'll just highlight the spelling differences here. Right? Complementary, spelled with an E, means something that is that complements each other. Complement, spelled with two E's, means like it goes well with each other. Like the pairing is good, right? Like for example, cheese complements pasta, right? In color theory, the colors on the opposite side of the color wheel are complementary, such as like orange is complementary to blue. In maths, two angles that add to 90 degrees are complementary. So like you can kind of get the idea, right? There are two things that make they're 1 plus 1 that equals more than 2. It's two things that are greater than whole, right? Two parts that are greater than whole, right? Fee with no R. I'm getting capitalization wrong a lot today. Fee is the opposite of the other word you might be thinking of that might go with fee. Fee is a payment. It's a payment that you pay, and it's a payment that you pay basically to do something. Like for example, an access fee or an entry fee, right? A lot with a space. You probably know what a lot means. It means many. Continual. I actually didn't know this one until today. Continual means something that is happening many times over and over again, right? For example, I don't know. Israel and Palestine's conflicts have been continual since Israel was established as a country. I don't think anyone can deny that. That's not particularly political. McDonald's McFlurry machines breakdowns are continual in the US. Perspective with an E. Perspective. With E means like point of view, right? Like my perspective is the way I look at the world, and it is also the things I am looking at is my field of view. It is my vision, right? That is my perspective. It's literally like the things I'm looking at and the things I'm thinking. That is my perspective. Progeny. It's very simple. It's offspring. I don't think this one will be confused by that many people because it's a relatively uncommon word. Want. It means to loathe. You probably know what the commonly confused one for this is, but it means to loathe. He was wont to do exercise. Right? Stationary. With an A. Stationary with an A means to be in place. To be still. To not move. And lastly, perpetuate. Means to keep going, right? Like, for example, perpetuating the cycle of poverty. People in Africa are perpetuating the cycle of poverty due to poor education and lack of opportunity. Right? Perpetuate. I think that's it. How long did that take? Oh, less than 10 minutes. It's going really fast. Because I paced this to be like the other half of the words too. But that's a pretty short section. It'll probably be made up for by the grammatical feature of the week, which is tense. So, tense, which is, there are two tenses in English, past and non-past. There are some truly, truly ludicrous claims about how many tenses there are in English, ranging from 3 to 12 to I think I saw someone claiming there were 16. But no, there are two. I'll write this down. Two, zwei, die, deux. Two tenses in English. I cannot exaggerate this enough. There are only two tenses in English. Popular myths are that aspects are tenses, which they're not, as I covered last week. And there is a future tense. Let me demonstrate right now. Right? How do you conjugate to have in the present? It's pretty simple. Have. How do you conjugate to have in the past? Had. How do you conjugate to have in the present? Future. Will have. It's the same word? It's the same word? It's literally the same word. This is a different word. This is a different word. These are the same words. They're the same damn words, okay? This is not a tense. Anyways, so there are two tenses, past and non-past, often called the present. And there are well, non-past is simple, right? Just so I can well, no, there are also non-finite tenses. That's finite. There are also non-finite tenses. Which include the infinitive, the gerund, and the participle. And I think they're verb forms. Actually, they're categorized as verb forms. I'll have to check that. Yeah, they are verb forms, so they're not tenses. There are only two tenses. So as I mentioned earlier, the infinitive is the base verb form that we use to divide all of our verbs, which in English is made with the word to followed by the verb. Like for this example, we will use like a very uncommon verb. Like today in French class, I learned the verb zèbre, derived from zèbre, meaning zebra. And it means to stripe. And that's all I've been thinking about. So we'll use the verb stripe today. So in the past tense, this would be striped. And that's it. And in the third person, you need to add an S. Stripe. Stripes. As in he stripes. In the first person singular. As in he stripes. Right? Conventional for third person singulars, I mean, because they uses third person plural form since that's a recent invention. And there's no change. So some English speakers. Sorry, that comes later. There are also rules that comes with forming the past tense, and it's actually pretty perfect that I have striped here, because the last letter can sometimes be double when I'm forming the past tense regularly. So the difference between stripe and strip, between to stripe and to strip, is that this is a tense vowel. This is a tense vowel, and this is not, right? As well as this, the stress is on this syllable, while the final syllable of stripe, which is the P, which is the the final syllable of stripe, which I believe is, it is the P. Corrections coming next week, of course, if it's not. But, which I believe is the P, is a PE, is not stress. And the stress falls on the first syllable. Right, strip, stripe, stripe. I think by the pitch accent you can tell stress as well. I'll get into pitch accent later. Many weeks later, but it's a very, very complicated topic. I'll probably need a whole video just dedicated to pitch accent, but The past tense of to stripe is stripped, and the past tense of to strip, sorry, the past tense of to stripe is striped, and the past tense of to strip is stripped. Why? It's quite simple, right? This, when there's one vowel, when there's one consonant in between, this still modifies this. So this is still a tense vowel. However, if there are two letters in between, this no longer modifies this. And so this is now the same vowel as this. Let me just mark this. This is a lax vowel, and this is a tense vowel. Right? This is still a tense vowel, and this is still a lax vowel. Isn't it beautiful how this language works? Things you thought were irregular are now regular. And that's the beauty of language learning. But yeah, if the final syllable is stressed, then you duplicate the consonant. If the final syllable is not stressed, then you do not duplicate the consonant. Again, to preserve the vowel. It's very rare. The Brits like to do this with L too, but I don't really get it. So for example, to travel. Right? That would be travel in America and travel in British. Right? GA is General American. GB is Great British. Great Britain, obviously. Although I should probably switch this to US since GA is a spoken standard. Although this also applies to Australia. Why? Well, because this is reduced. So these two have the same result because these are both reduced. So there is no difference in pronunciation between these two. Some English speakers mistake the past participle of the past with something else. Let's take this verb, to sing, which has an irregular past because it is a Germanic heavy verb. So what is a Germanic heavy verb? In Old Germanic, which was the ancestor of English, because the people who spoke English came from what is now Schleswig-Holstein in Germany, which you might know as that one place that France tried to take. If you studied your war history. Where's that Alsace? I swear. Oh, no, that's different. If you study your history, you know that Schleswig-Holstein is half Nordic, half German, right? And I think it was Bismarck, actually, who solved that question and incorporated it into Germany. But history has nothing to do with this, because the Angles spoke Old English, which came from Germanic, and in Germanic there's a system of what we called strong and weak verbs, not heavy and light. That's something else entirely. But strong and weak verbs, where strong verbs were altered with mutation of the vowel, and weak verbs were altered in this So what is to sing? What is the conjugation of to sing in the past? It's sang. As in, I sang. But hold up. Isn't there also this one other form with a U? What's that about? That is a participle, which is not technically a tense, but I figured I'd merge in here because I don't know where else to include this. This can honestly be a whole separate segment of its own, but participles are a word derived from a verb that is used like an adjective. In most cases, the past participle is the same as the... I'll do past participle first, because that's the complicated one. Right? The past participle is the same as the simple past in most occasions. In some occasions, they're different. In most occasions, they're the same. And same goes with the gerund too. That's why people find it very confusing that wait, it's not the same word. People will say I sung, but that's a different tense. That has different aspectual connotation to it. But and the present participle is equal to the present plus ing. I am abusing glossing rules here, but I did not read any glossing rules, so that's pretty good, in my opinion. I think present is PT, but these both have PT, so I don't get it. I don't know. Anyways, participles are like forms of verbs that are used as adjectives. For example, he sung, like as in he's singing. They are also used in the construction of the passive voice, such as in he was stung. But this does not equal he sang. So I can use these like adjectives. For example, like his song was sung. I feel like that's pretty obvious. But yeah. Another thing is that unlike normal adjectives, these don't take other adjectives to form an adjectival phrase. These take an adverb to form an adverbial phrase. So you do not say, his song was sung beautiful. This is a mistake I find with a lot of ESL learners. His song was sung very beautiful. No. Beautifully. Beautifully. And present participles, as I said, is from present and ing. Participles, as I said, are also used to construct the passive voice, which I'll cover in future weeks, which is completely outside the scope of this video, and is also used to construct aspectual phrases, such as he was singing, which, as you might remember, is in the past continuous. But this takes the present participle the past tense of is. And that is a continuous construction in English. Third person singular pronoun plus the past tense of is plus the present participle. Some literature like to categorize verbs like sung, participles like sung, as passive. Because if you say he was sung, that implies a passive voice, but not many people agree with that. But oh no, that's just how you construct voices. He had sung. Right, with the past tense of have instead of is, would connote the perfective aspect. Right? I think that's all. Yes, that's all. Next week we cover modalities, which is the final part in this trilogy of verbs. Black pen's kind of weird, I'm not gonna lie. I don't like the way my board looks after I use it. But anyways, I hate this. This is my board in Hong Kong. But anyways, lastly, pop culture of the day has been scrapped because I don't actually know that much pop culture, and it's been replaced with idiom of the day. Idiom of the day. So what is an idiom? An idiom, or a proverb, is a saying that means something figuratively. It means a set thing figuratively, and it started off as just normal figurative language, literary device. But then people started saying it over and over and over again, so much so that it's just become like a thing that you say now. And today's idiom is, this week's idiom, is a rolling stone gathers no moss. Because idioms have been used over and have to be used over and over and over and over again to imprint into the general consciousness, they are old. Like very old. Like so old we can't trace what the origins actually are, because most of the scriptures that have it are either in a different language, burned, or both. So a rolling stone gathers no moss originated, the earliest record we can find of this in English, the original record of this in Latin came around the 11th century. It's a pretty old saying. And the book that this was attested to have come to is lost. What does this saying mean? It means if you are only by settling down will you be successful. If you hurry about all over the place, you'll get nothing done, which is, I think, a nice sentiment to keep in mind, and it's a very nice saying in general in English. Fun fact, that idiom is the origins of the name of the band The Rolling Stones, as in they would travel from place to place and never settle down, yet they still found success. Maybe the idiom is wrong, maybe not. It's been tested with like 1,000 years of trials, so I doubt it's wrong. But anyways, every idiom holds a great amount of wisdom. And yeah, that's the end of this episode. How are we doing on time? 1 minute 5? Perfect. See you next time. Bye.